everyone. Welcome to our National Disability Mentoring Day event. Yo Disabled and Proud, CFILC, and Anthem proudly present Leaders of Tomorrow. We are so excited to be able to have y'all join us. But first, we will be going over some accessibility basics on Zoom. We will be having captions in the toolbar. There should be a CC button, so you just go onto the button and click on it and press the subtitle button so you can be able to have access to it. We will also be putting the links in the chat for stream text if you want to view it on the site. Moreover, we will be having some wonderful ASL interpreters who will be available and will be with us throughout the whole event. I also want to state we will be having a Q&A session. So please send your questions in the Q&A. Raise your hand if it is more accessible so we can be able to unmute you. Also, please let us know if you need any support in the chat. Next page. But however, I really want to be able to take the time to quickly give some history on why Disability Mentoring Day is so important. This program began in 2001 in the White House and continued to grow as American Association of People with Disabilities took lead on it. Secondly, Disability Mentoring Day is an international event that exists to promote career development for students and job seekers and make employees aware of qualified candidates. Next page. Thus, I wanted to quickly take the time to introduce myself. My name is Jessica Riestra, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a brown Latinx woman that has dark brunette hair with blonde highlights and brown eyes. I am wearing a gold and gray shirt and sweater, and I have like a pink blurry background in the back. I am the new youth organizer with CFILC, and I proudly coordinate the YO program. My goal is to make sure that youth voices on service are represented on services and disability policy issues. Next page. Now, I will quickly pass it to one of our amazing volunteers, Cami Marble, to present some exciting opportunities and events our YO program will be coordinating.
Thanks, Jessica. Hi, everyone. My name is Cami Marble. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a white woman with short brown hair, and I'm wearing round blue glasses and a red Yo Disabled and Proud shirt. Behind me, I have a white wall, and the corner of my blue chair is peeking out from behind my shoulder. And I also have a lamp with a white lampshade behind me. So I would like to tell you a little bit about our upcoming Yo Disabled and Proud events. To stay with us on our events, you can follow us on both Instagram and Twitter at Yo Disabled and Proud, all one word. Our next upcoming event is with Emily Ladow. It's an installment in our Yo Disability Leadership Speaker Series, and that is Tuesday, November 16th at 3 p.m. And you can register for that at the link that is on the screen, and that will be in the chat shortly. And on the left-hand side of our screen, we have a picture of, or we just had a picture of Emily Ladow. And now our next event, or our next announcement we have, is the launch of the Disability Belongs podcast, which is my baby and a part of the Yo Disabled and Proud program. If you would like to follow along on our podcast journey, you can follow us on Instagram at disability_belongs_podcast, or visit our website, disabilitybelongs.podbean.com. And on the left-hand side of the screen here, we have an announcement of our first episode. Episode 1 is live now, and I got to interview Tatum Tricarico, who is also one of our Yo leads. We have a picture of her here in her blind person in the area shirt. And we have a quote on the screen from her: "Leaning into your accommodations helps you tell the truth about your body and the way that you exist in the world." And that is from Tatum Tricarico on the Disability Belongs podcast. We are so excited for all of our upcoming Yo events and for this event today. And so I'm going to throw it back to Jessica to introduce our panelists.
So once again, and without further ado, I would like to proudly present our panelists this afternoon. First, we have Michael Galvan, who is the Executive Director for Community Resources and Independent Center, or better known as CRIL. Secondly, we have Lisa Hayes, who is the Executive Director of Rolling Start. Thirdly, we have Lillibeth Navarro, who is the Founder and Executive Director for Communities Actively Living, Independent and Free, or better known as CALIF. And lastly, we have Larry Wenger, who is the Executive Director of the Dayle McIntosh Center, or better known as DMC. Before beginning our interview, I would love if the panelists are able to introduce themselves and provide their descriptions. And we can start with Michael.
Michael Galvan. I'm a Native American senior person. So I used to have black hair, which is now mostly white. I'm wearing a light green polo with a blue jacket. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I am Ohlone and Miwok, which are two of the tribes that are native to the Bay Area. So my family stopped here thousands of years ago, for which I'm very grateful. And I've been at CRIL now for 10 years.
Awesome. Now I'll pass it to Lisa.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lisa Hayes. I am an Irish American, white woman with auburn-colored hair. I am wearing a green top with a necklace. I wear glasses, my eyes are green, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. It's awesome to be with y'all.
And now I'll pass it to Lillibeth Navarro.
Hi, I'm Lillibeth Navarro. I'm Filipino American. I came in '82 as a journalism fellow. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I've been an independent living center consumer way before I became a founder and director of CALIF. So hello, happy to be here.
Thank you. And now I'll pass it to Larry to introduce himself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you today. I'm Larry Wenger, and I'm joining you from Anaheim. And I am wearing a shirt that has different tones of blue in it. I'm a white man, 50 years old. And I too, as Lillibeth shared, began my journey working in independent living as first a person receiving service as a consumer, then as a volunteer, and then as a staff person. I'm sure I'll share more about that. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much to all these speakers for introducing yourselves. With that said, today's event exists to empower youth to continuously fight for their dream careers. Therefore, before beginning our Q&A session, would it be possible if our panelists are able to describe their disability journey to employment? And we could start with Michael.
I'm bipolar 1, and I'd have to say for the first, up until I was 50, it was a challenge in my work because I didn't know I was bipolar 1. But since then, with medication, I really balanced out. I can't tell you how wonderful it is, and came to work at an independent living center here in Hayward because I wanted to be somewhere where I could be myself and not have to worry. Because the last place I was working at told me not to share that I had a disability. Upset me tremendously. So, but now I'm here and very, very, very happy that I can join you.
and we are so happy that you are here, very much so.
Mhm.
Now I'll pass it to Lisa. If you could just give us like a brief story of your employment process and so on.
So I was born with my disability. I was told throughout my life that I didn't need to work, that I could go on benefits because nobody would really hire somebody with a disability. I am of short stature and I use a wheelchair. So it was really kind of felt like I was fighting against what was expected of me, which was not much, and what I wanted to do in life. My very first degree was in music, and I wanted to record music, and I wanted to be the first wheelchair Janis Joplin. That was my dream. And I actually, really attempted that dream. I recorded music for a very long time. And try to shop my music for other artists to sing. But during that time, I always worked. So I had to I grew up in the foster system, and I needed to figure out how to, really be on my own. I sort of wheeled away when I was 16 and a half years old, and never looked back. My first job was working in something where I worked 3 to 11, and all I did was call nurses to try to get them to go do shifts at different hospitals. It was a lot of fun, but I actually, things happened, life happened. I enjoyed working. I always, continued even through college. And I'm very blessed to have had 3 careers, I say, 3 really awesome careers. My very first career was actually working in an oil company. And I worked my way up in an oil company that from just being secretarial work to a program manager, which was a pretty high position in that industry. When that job did 8 years there, and then I ended up temping for a healthcare organization. I worked 23 years for managed care organizations and loved it. And then my third career is working here in an independent living center. I always dreamed about it, actually wanted to do it, and we'll talk a little bit more about my mentor and why I decided to go after this. But I absolutely love what I've done. I feel like I've done so many different things, but the journey has been pretty fun, pretty cool. Anyway, that's my story.
That's exciting to know, and I'm so excited to ask future questions more on your mentors and so on. So now I'll pass it to Lillibeth to know a little bit of your journey to employment.
Okay. I had polio as a disability when I was 5 months old. I never walked in my life, but I come from a family of hard workers, and I'm one of 7, was never treated any differently in terms of competitiveness. So my first job, I got to college, and my dad, I liked arts and letters, but my dad said, that's not gonna feed you. So you need to study business. So I did like numbers, and, but I out of obedience, I did, which served me well later. So my first job was to work as a clerk. I started working the week I graduated from college. And I said, how do I become manager of files? So I felt it was too humble for me. But then again, no, you start little and you be happy with it and you go. So anyway, from there I got to write about people with disabilities. That actually was the key, because at the company I worked at, it was a social welfare agency. And I thought I was the only disabled person in my town until I saw them coming out of the woodwork. And I'm like fish with water, so in water. So I started writing, and that got me a scholarship to study journalism in the States. And here it was I thought I got to disability heaven until there was the struggle for a job. That's where I really felt a lot of the frustration, because it was hard to compete. They would give you education, but not a real job. I got keys to the elevator, promised a job, only to be told, no, we found someone else. I felt that was the kick I needed to really be on my own. I said, well, if you won't give me a job, I will create my job. And so from there to now, I have created my job. So.
That is so empowering. Like, honestly, I truly mean that. Like, thank you. With that, like, I'll pass it to Larry to quickly, like, give us like a description of his journey to employment.
All right, everyone. Thanks, Jessica. My journey to employment first began when I was in high school. And it wasn't because I got a job, it was because I was told also that I could just get on benefits. And at that time, SSI benefits were pretty low, a couple $100. And I knew that that was not the life that I wanted, and that I wanted something different. And so I applied for, quite a few jobs when I was in high school. And I did a lot of different things in high school and college. I worked as a janitor. I did the fast food thing like people do, or restaurants, worked on a farm even for a time. And so I had a lot of jobs that a lot of other people when they're younger might have. You're starting out in the world of work. From there, I went to college, continued to do this, that, and the other thing. I worked in radio for a time, and then found my way to working at an independent living center. And so I've always worked and or been trying to work because I just knew that sure, benefits are there and they serve a purpose, but that's not going to buy nice things. That's not going to allow me to travel. That's not going to allow me to do the things I want to do and reach the goals I have for my life, even beyond money, just personal well-being and reaching my goals. And so what I've learned through this whole journey is that there's all these systems and programs and benefits out there, such as Department of Rehab and others that are out there to support you on your employment journey. But at the end of the day, it's your journey and you need to own it, drive it, and make it happen. Nobody else is going to do that for you. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Like, thank you to the four of you for like being able to give us like your story of journey to employment and like what you went through, which leads towards a few questions that I have for all of you towards being able to get like a better understanding of like the importance of mentors and what they meant for you, as well as like your own individual struggles within like the workforce and so on. So with that, my first question would be to Lisa. January is National Mentoring Month, and yet the disability community has established Disability Mentoring Day in addition to the month. Why do you think there was a need to establish a Disability Mentoring Day? And how would such a day have impacted your life as a disabled youth? I think you're muted, Lisa.
How long have we been doing Zoom? Goodness gracious. So it's a great question. Thank you for asking. I didn't know, first of all, January was mentoring month. That was cool. It does support the National Disability Employment Awareness Month, which is the month of October. I believe that's something that the American Association of People with Disabilities started, AAPD. I think maybe even a broader question might be, why do we need ending? Why do we need Disability Employment Awareness Month? And, you know, when I listening to a lot of the journeys that my colleagues were talking about, you know, we've gone through some similar things. You know, there's expectations. Some of us had the expectation was to work. Some of us, the expectation was, you know, to go on benefits. Yeah, when you think about, I think back, you know, when I started working, and I can honestly tell you, I don't think I ever saw, or it was rare if I ever saw anybody that looked like me in the work environment. You know, and when you look at statistics about the unemployment rate of people with disabilities, it's ridiculously large. When you look at, I think last I saw in 2020, it was like 12.6%, which was the highest it's ever been in 7 years. Whereas the current unemployment rate for people without disabilities, it's 4.8. Why is that? Why are there not more people that look like you and I that are out there in the workforce? So in answer to your question, we need it. We need to really try to understand the barriers. How do we move past the barriers? How do we get more people out there and get employed? When I think about, you know, all of the people, parents, foster parents, medical professionals, educators, and, you know, our own fears, you know, that we have about going out there in the workforce. Do you disclose your disability if it's not visible? Do you worry about accessibility? If I had a nickel for every job interview I went on that I could not actually access, I probably would need to work. And it's, you know, how do you ask for an accommodation? The whole thing is freaking mind blowing, right? And it's scary as hell. But I do truthfully believe we need to be out there in the workforce. And I can tell you all day long about how having us more out there is going to change society, improve access, change perceptions, which are all true. But I think you need to be out there for you. As Larry said, you need to find your journey. You don't need to live in poverty. And when you look around, you know, people with disabilities and the income that you're going to get on SSI, you're not going to have a lot. There's just not a lot of money there to do things. And if you want, you know, you can own a home. You can own 2 homes. You can have a real estate empire. You can have a 401k, the simple things, an IRA, a trust fund. You can go on vacations. You know, these are the things that you as an American citizen have absolutely the right to have. So yes, I believe we need things like Disability Employment Awareness Day. If I go back to your question about how would such a day have impacted my life if that happened when I was a youth, I think it would have tremendous. I think of all the detours I could have avoided. So all the little pitfalls that I could have avoided, because, you know, to get where I am today, it truly was a journey, and it truly was my journey. And that's not to say that you're not going to have yours, but maybe a mentor could help you kind of maybe give you some ideas or suggestions on how to avoid some of the things that could end up being a big barrier. But I hope that answers the question.
Oh, for sure. And like, you honestly brought in a great point when it comes towards unemployment, which leads towards my second question. And I will direct that to Larry. The unemployment rate of disabled people has been consistently high, regardless of policy change that has increased access for people with disabilities to get a job. Why do you think the unemployment rate has roughly stayed the same? And is there a correlation between that and the need for young disabled people to have mentors and role models in the employment fields they are interested in pursuing?
It's a great question. Thanks for the chance to respond. I think there's a lot of reasons for the high unemployment rate. And in addition to kind of having my journey as someone with a disability going to work, I ran an employment program at an independent living center for about 9 years and got to work with a lot of other folks who were on their journey. And I think that there's a lot of things that come to mind, but one of the things that I'm really stuck on thinking about that contributes to this is expectations that others have of us, and stereotypes and beliefs, but I just kind of summarize as expectations about what they think we're able to do, and therefore the boxes they put us in, how we are treated and regarded when we go to job interviews, et cetera, but also expectations of ourselves, and or expectations that are, when we're younger, that our parents and families may have or not have for us. And so I really challenge people who are struggling to find work and or who are struggling on their journey to think about what they want to do, to really think about how they're challenging themselves and their expectations, and those that others have for us. Because if we don't believe in ourselves and expect ourselves to succeed, I don't think anybody else is going to. There have been all kinds of programs and efforts to address the high unemployment percentage of folks with disabilities, and I, to be honest, I don't have any one answer that explains, despite all these efforts, why it continues to be so high. I think that there's just a variety of things, from the confusion and challenges that surround work incentives and understanding how to manage your benefits when you're making that effort to go to work. Because as somebody who got those nasty grams from Social Security when you were trying to work, it's very, very frustrating and frightening, and difficult to understand some of those things. And as a young person, I think that's a big part of it, and that we need to see work incentives simplified and benefits programs simplified so people can go to work and not risk so much. I do think that mentors can help. When I think back to my younger days as someone who was trying to think about what I wanted to do when I grew up, I'm still trying to figure that out, I think, sometimes. But I remember distinctly in 8th grade, we had this career day, and I was able to go visit 2 different occupations. People doing, one was a social worker, or human service work at a nonprofit, and the other, I used to be very interested in the weather, so I got to go visit the weather office at the airport. And those were some of the coolest experiences, because I got to follow people around and ask questions and learn. And so what I'm getting to there is that those types of opportunities, if they're afforded to you, are really great to take advantage of. They provide you an opportunity to learn about potential work situations. And then, yes, that mentors can help. And you may need to go out of your way to find someone who can serve as a mentor who has a disability. I know I didn't really have exposure to those people when I was younger, and you may or may not as a young person. But I really encourage you to go out of your way to find people and connect with people in your life who have worked for a while, can answer some of those questions, can provide you with some coaching and support. I think it greatly can help someone's ability to find work and maintain employment and manage all of those things that go along with it.
Thank you. I honestly heard you, and I totally agree with it, and the importance of mentors and why we need them, which also leads towards my third question, which I would direct to Lillibeth. And in what ways can a disabled mentor impact a young person's perspective on going to college, getting a job, living independently, and reaching their goals in life? Moreover, how do you find a mentor, when you have a disability and don't know adult role models with disabilities?
Well, that seems to be a perfect question for me, because I grew up in a country where people with disabilities were not so visible. It's still very hard to go out and congregate. So you don't see too many people like yourself, like Lisa was saying about her situation. Well, I was there. And I think the first disabled person I saw in the movie was a blind person in the movie. I think it was Sydney. I forgot the name of the movie, but my heart jumped when I saw this disabled person in a movie. And then my mom's classmate in college, I met when I was in high school, and she was a disabled person. But in the meantime, I was really learning from my own experience. I think my disability is my greatest teacher. So I came to terms with it. I came to terms with the things that I could not do and found a way to do them. I would look at the world around me and learn from the sciences. I use physics a lot in the way I manage my movement and my disability. I'm keenly interested in the science around me and in gadgets, and I loved AT. And when I came to America, like I said, I keep saying it, I thought I got to disability heaven. But the people around here, I saw each convenience as a footprint. And I really developed a deep admiration for our disability pioneers who really worked hard and paid for, even with their lives, for putting these things in place. So it's really important that we learn about them, that we preserve our history, and also particularly we have to look at the working world. We have to critique the working world. We have to look at the laws that govern working. Social Security says, oh, you cannot work because you have a disability, so therefore here's money. But then again, when you work, they say, oh, you're no longer disabled because you can earn money. Your physical body doesn't change. In fact, the more you work, the more you become disabled because you age. And yet, when we retire, when it's time to retire, you are denied, for example, IHSS, in home supportive services. Why? Because you work. So it's a lopsided way of thinking and treating people and workers with disabilities. So we have to keep in mind too that our ability to work depends on how accessible the environment is. And I had great teachers in the disability movement who taught me that, So a love for our history, our continuous study of the people who created what we have now, never ever take what we have now for granted, and fight very hard to preserve them and improve on them, and keep changing and improving the laws and creating better laws, because whatever we do to improve our lives will redound to the benefit of the whole humanity. Does not just benefit us, it benefits the family, elderly people, everybody. Look at what the pandemic proved. They denied us working, right? And yet, what? 90% of people were working from home. Hello? Are disabled people not working when they stay from home? Heck, we are sometimes the busiest. We help with the babysitting, we help with the calling, we help with errands. We are working. And it's time that the world recognizes that. And I think the pandemic was a friend in that way. So.
Thank you. And I totally agree, like in all regards towards how I think the pandemic hopefully has opened a lot of perspectives for a lot of people when it comes towards the workforce and like in general, the importance of like all the work that is being done. And I think, no, and I know you brought in some amazing points, which I want to be able to direct a bit back to Lisa. And sometimes there are formal mentors programs that pair up youth with adults, but a lot of times mentor type relationships naturally happen. In fact, many people might not even know that they are thought of as mentors by others. How have mentors impacted your life? What did your mentors do for you? If you could share an example, that would be really nice. And did you ever tell them that they were your mentors?
Thank you, Jessica. So I would say there are probably 4 people in my life that were extraordinarily influencers. And of the 4, I would say only one I actually called my mentor. So it ranged from, I told you I grew up in the system, in the foster system. I went for a very long time, some very challenging times as a child. And a coach was an amazing mentor, a wheelchair basketball coach. He, just changed my life into, always being told what I couldn't do to what I could do. And that was just as I was going into middle school. So, and that was probably, the timing was perfect, because I don't know that, I needed that desperately. I needed to know that there was hope beyond oppression, right? So there was that. There was Kathy. I will never forget her. She's passed now, but she was a leader in an organization called CAF. This was before all of your times, California Association for the Physically Handicapped. It was the advocacy organization in the state of California. It was all that in a bag of chips. It was probably the nickel of California. And she was a leader in CAF. And I met her when I was 16 years old. And that was the first time I understood disability advocacy. It was the first time I went on a rally where we were blocking the buses in LA because they were not accessible at the time. None of them had ramps. And then I would say a person that is very well known, I think, in our community, Teresa Fabuzi. She was my true mentor as I kind of journeyed through moving out of managed care and into what I'm doing today. And I miss her terribly. Anytime I was really struggling with something, she always took the time to talk with me, to help me through it, to weigh the pros and cons. She's not with us anymore, and I miss her terribly. But yes, and as far as, did I let her know, did we talk about her being my mentor? 100%. I think everybody needs somebody like that, somebody that can just pick up the phone, maybe meet regularly, but just pick up the phone to just say, I'm struggling with something, don't know how to deal with this. Do you have some suggestions? I think that's hugely valuable.
Thank you. And thank you, just in general, for discussing the importance of mentors and your own personal story. I feel that that's something that we could reflect to, and that we could all be able to connect with someone that has made an impact in our lives. Now, we will be quickly turning a bit of the page when it comes towards another big issue, which is mental health. I apologize. Independent living centers provide services to people with all types of disabilities. And in California, and about 20% of people served by an independent living center have a mental health disability. So my question would go to Michael. As a person who identifies as having a mental health disability, can you share with us what securing a job has been like for you? And what advice do you have to give to youth with mental health disabilities that want to work, but might have ups and downs like anyone else?
Thank you. First of all, I'm going to say I looked at our numbers here at CRIL, and in the last 5 years, we've averaged between 25 to 30% of our consumers have mental health issues. So I bet everybody else is probably going into that category also. I think there's some very unique challenges that happen when you have a mental health disability. The first is that it's invisible. I mean, people say, "Oh no, not you. You look absolutely fine," you know. And the other part of that is unknown. For the longest time, I had no idea what was going on in my life. With bipolar, you can be depressed or manic. And in my teen years, which is when it began, I spent a couple of years in very severe depression. But it was in the middle of the last century, so it was a while ago. Psychology was a baby science at the time. So people just basically said I was weak or didn't know what was going on, or I'd grow out of it. Who knows, right? And it continued to about every 3 or 4 years, I'd have a major depressive moment that lasts usually a couple months. But I could still work. And so I went to school, went on to school forever. This will help a little. I surprised people. I was a priest for 27 years. Ended up, I got a doctorate out of Berkeley and spirituality, the GTU there, but still was depressed. But the other side of the depression, which got really bad after 1992, was my doctors decided to treat me for the depression with a medication called Zoloft, which drove my mania to incredible lengths. So for about 8 years, I was just nonstop going everywhere and anywhere, to where one of my friends said to me one day, "Michael, you've got to change your life, because nobody's going to go to your gravestone and say, 'Oh, gee, Michael worked really hard.' People are just going to ignore you and forget about you." Somehow that really hit me, and I took some time to figure out what I needed to do, and started working with a psychiatrist. I had 2 psychiatrists, both of them were just incredible for me, who helped me understand what was going on, because I used to think something was wrong with me. And I finally came to the point where I'm going, this is me. And there's certain ways that I need to learn how to handle how I react to things. And I can tell you 20 odd years ago, when I was introduced to lithium, I cannot tell you how happy I became, because I didn't know life could be so easy. It was because before then, everything was dramatic. It was either a high or a low, but here it became rather evened out. What I found, though, is in our world in which you and I live, there is the invisible disability, there is the unknown disability, and then there is the not spoken of disability. So there's 3 different categories there. And I was working with emancipated foster youth in getting them into housing and helping them learn how to get jobs and things like that. And I stayed there until I was told one day that I should not share my disability with the young people. I thought, I'm not going to work somewhere where I cannot be who I am, because I'm not ashamed of who I am. This is how I am, and I've learned to cope with it. That's what I want to share, is that you can learn how to cope with it, but you have to realize that it's going to be hard because it's invisible. You may not know you have it, and then there are a lot of people who do not want you to talk about it. But I have found that in the Independent Living Center, you can be known, you can be visible, and you can talk about it and be a whole person, which is it's a grace moment that I found myself here at CRIL, because I feel accepted and able to be who I am. And I feel very comfortable, and this I would do with anybody who's looking for a job, but you have to be comfortable and know your environment. I would feel very comfortable. All my staff know that I have bipolar 1, and they also know my symptoms if something is going on, because I don't know if I'm going off into a manic episode. I don't sense it. But they help me. And that's what I found tremendously, is that because now I know what's going on, I can share that with people who help me, which make it possible for me to be employed and to feel productive and to feel that I'm contributing, because I don't hide who I am. Instead, I share who I am. And that's a much healthier experience.
Thank you. That really hits me hard because, like, also being like a Latina woman, it's the Latino culture very closest, like on the sense of like being able to have like a mental health disability. And they're very close-minded when it comes just in general to like any type of health issue. So like it's really important and impactful, like being able to know how like you're able to create kind of like a safe space for yourself, like by being able to like talk towards like-minded people and people that like are able to understand like where you're coming from and being able to hear you and so on. So I definitely appreciate like your answer, especially because like I have a lot of those hardships, like when it's all about close-mindedness about
I hear you there. And I want to mention something that happened in my family as a result. I have an uncle who from everything that has been described to me was also bipolar 1, but he grew up in the 20s and 30s, and so nobody had an idea of what it was. And he was more or less an outcast in the family, he ended up being homeless and having an addiction problem. But after I worked through my issues and shared it with my family, it was amazing that my grandmother was able to identify that her son probably had the same issues, and that it was able to heal a lot in her, because she had carried this of what had she done wrong, and instead probably nothing. You know, it's just he had something that we didn't know at the time how to deal with.
For sure. Thank you. And I think that leads towards my next question, because I'm big on being able to discuss the importance of mental health and healthcare, which leads towards my next question being directed to Larry. With healthcare impacts everyone's life, but for those of us with disabilities, healthcare is part of our life. How can a mentor help us create a good work-life balance and help us understand our disability healthcare needs? What is it like when you have a disability that requires you to sometimes take a break and focus on your health? If you're working, are employees accepting of those type of accommodations?
There's a lot there to respond to. First of all, healthcare is just such a huge issue for people with disabilities that for all of us at some level. I mean, many folks have very significant and major healthcare needs, and as a younger person are wondering how, if I have to go to the doctor on a fairly regular basis, or if I need to take breaks or rest or need other accommodations, how will that work if I'm trying to hold down a job? And the reality is that I think that a mentor can be really helpful in helping you think that through, helping you to resolve some of the anxiety and concern you might have around that. And so again, really encourage finding someone, whether you have someone in your life now who is a person with a disability who's working and might have some significant healthcare concerns or issues, or reaching out to your independent living center locally or another organization to find that person and, talk with them and ask questions and learn about how they've managed things. There are creative solutions. There are ways to approach employers and ways not to approach employers about those types of needs and requests and accommodations. So, without going too far down the path of talking about accommodations and how that whole process should work, the reality is that there are ways to address those concerns many times, and that a mentor certainly can help you do that. I think the other, just healthcare related, I think the other major concern people have is that they need to maintain the insurance coverage they have through Medi-Cal or Medicare and supplements and those types of things. And again, without going down the path of talking about how all of that works when you get a job, because there's just no way to do that here today, really encourage reaching out to organizations that can help you with that benefits counseling and explain before you try to go to work how all of that will process and how you can use work incentives and maintain the benefits that you have, and what might be available to you. So doing those things before you have a job offer, right? Or before you start a job and go, oh no, I didn't think about this. Thinking about all of those issues and how they're going to interact with you managing a job. And then the last thing I'll kind of put a plug in for is that when you first go to work, it can be exhausting. And sometimes a lot of people start to think, oh, my disability is just a problem and I can't work. You're adding a lot to your life. And so I always encourage and would tell people when I was working with them, give yourself a break, cut yourself some slack. You're adding a major source of a major time commitment. And you may not have the energy or time, therefore, to delegate toward the other things, such as maintaining your house or spending time with family or other things that you might have been doing before you got that job. And so give yourself a break and plan for that adjustment. But yes, I mean, the short answer is that mentors can be extremely helpful. And in particular around, hey, how did you handle your healthcare needs and manage that with your employer and with your job, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you a lot for being able to answer that, and just the extreme importance of healthcare and how it impacts in general all of us. Now I guess I will leads towards also towards my next question, which I would direct to Lillibeth. And this is something that's of extreme importance towards me, because as we have seen throughout this past year, we have seen how communities have come together when it comes towards social issues and just being able to address the importance of intersectionality and equity, and how those been growing concerns of interest amongst our society. Yet disability is often forgotten or ignored in those conversations. How do the intersection of disability, ethnicity, sexual orientation, economic status, and equity all play into the disability mentorship and the success of disabled youth in the future?
Thank you for your question. I think if you look at the different minority categories or different groups, we really have a lot in common. The experience of discrimination, being misunderstood, being ignored, set aside. It might not be intentional on other people's parts, but it's still a habit, because from the dawn of time, people have had a way of dealing with us because of a misunderstanding of our experience, okay, the minority experience. So I think there's a lot there that we ourselves have to be curious about. I think we are very keen on what hurts us, on our own gripes. And we gotta move a little farther from that and also realize what the things are for the other groups. I tell you a little story. I was organizing a protest, and it was against the UCLA athletes who were parking in disabled spaces, and that was depriving other people, the disabled, of the parking spaces. So, but my lingo, I was giving direction. It was all directed at people in wheelchairs because that was my orientation, right? Because I'm in a wheelchair. And I had among the people who participated, people who were blind. And I said, head for the elevator. And then I did not describe where the elevators were. So what I'm saying is we have to be cognizant also of the things that mean to other groups that we ourselves have blind spots for. Because the more we understand them, the better it is for dialogue. And so I think a curiosity, an understanding of our own oppression, but also a curiosity about other groups, and really having that goodwill to reach out and try very hard not to be judgmental. If you think you have a certain strength, your group is strong at this, not to be so so self-satisfied, you know, but to have that humility of spirit so that you can, in goodwill, reach out and open your heart to learning from them. So I think that would be my answer to that. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Honestly, I think that's really important and really impactful because we have seen how the intersectionalities of all these issues have come together, and like being able to address them in an equitable way, like that like impacts all of us, like is something that like is truly heartfelt. With that in mind, that has reached towards like at least the end of like this kind of interview thing going on. So we're gonna go into a Q&A session, which I will be leading alongside Cami. So yeah, so we're about to start that, and I'll start with the first question that I had like listed, and this is just directed towards all of you, which is each of you chose to lead disability rights organizations in your local communities. That's what independent living centers are all about. Why did you choose independent living? Would you have chosen the same path if you did it again? How are you mentoring and building opportunities for youth to become leaders in your organization? And anyone could be able to take lead in starting this up.
May I begin? I chose independent living because I could be myself here. And that is what is most important to me. And it's what the atmosphere that was here, and I continue to support that being here. And that is anyone who walks through our doors, this is home. Here you don't have to explain anything. You don't have to request things. We are here to be with one another, understanding that each of us have our own story and our own journey, and we're here just to help one another experience that. And would I do it again? Absolutely, because it has meant a real fulfillment in my life, that I'm also able to help other people realize that, and myself at the same time, that I'm a whole person, that I don't need to be fixed. I am who I am, and that's a good thing, and that's what I want to share with people.
This is Lisa. I'll go next. So I, got to thinking about how fortunate there's 49 people on this call, and I was looking at that and I'm like, that's really incredible, because all of you know about independent living centers and about independent living philosophy, or you're learning about it. I did not know about independent living centers until I was 35 years old, and I just think about all the challenges pitfalls I could have avoided, and and through my personal journey. I didn't start in a nonprofit independent living center. I started in a very commercial world, very I don't know, oil companies, medical, yeah, you see what I'm talking about. So talk about a culture shock. But when I learned about them, I started off by joining a board of directors. And that's how I kind of learned about IL philosophy. That's where I found Teresa, and then she became my mentor. And, here I thought I knew everything. And boy, I was recognized very quickly how little I did know. But then I thought, as the journey in managed care was kind of closing, I was, trying to think what's next. And, I thought I might have something to offer. The journey that I went on was, a little bit rocky and challenging, and completely non-disabled world. And maybe some of those experiences that I had can share. I would not change the way I've done it at all. Excited to be here in this space right now. Excited to be just talking to all of you guys. And I think, yeah, well, I don't think I would have done it any differently. So, yeah.
I'll jump in and go ahead. This is Larry. So I shared earlier that I was a consumer receiving services at an ILC. And then became a volunteer and then got a job working at a center. And when I tell that story, I always talk about how when I came to the center, I expected to tell them my problem basically, and I expected them to fix it because that's how the system elsewhere seems to work. And that's not what happened. They equipped me with the tools to solve that problem related to access and public transportation. And it was just such an eye-opener for me. I went to some place that instead of treating me like someone inferior or that, I had some problem, I guess, that I was capable instead of learning the information I needed, becoming an advocate and being able to address that situation. And so that was just incredible. And for me, I chose to volunteer and then work and continue to work at independent living centers because that model is so powerful of teaching others to do for themselves or doing with folks to give them the tools to make their life different. And, that really speaks to me. And I know that is a difference between independent living centers and many, many other service providers in the community. Would I do anything differently? There are days for sure when I'm like ripping my hair out, wondering, why am I doing this? That's just the life of a individual who's a director at a nonprofit and at an independent living center. And certainly I'm a lot grayer than I used to be because of that, I'm sure, in part at least. But no, I really, really value this work and value the work that centers do, and want to share that with other folks and empower other people to do great things. So yeah.
Okay, I guess my turn. As for me, it's the only life I've known, the disability experience. So I start from there. But then I really, and in all honesty, this is how I feel. I fell in love with the experience of disability. It's a very exciting experience. It cuts through all ages, all different categories. And I can relate as a disabled person. A lot of people can relate to me. I mean, the elderly relate to me. I relate to them. The children relate. I relate to them. I mean, it's such a universal experience, and it's an equalizing factor, and it's also nice because when you're able to find solutions for what the world out there thinks is impossible, they think you're a magician, you're a deity. You don't want to be treated like that, but it helps. The disability experience helps to demystify life, you know. And when I accept it and when I work in it, I find I don't have to resort to other things to fill that void. For me, it's very fulfilling. It's also exciting because there's always something new. I like writing, I like teaching, but the advocating part, the creating things, the working with government, working with communities. I can't think of any other more dynamic involvement that I want to be a part of, other than disability. It's the only thing I know. Sometimes I think, if I were not disabled, I probably could travel the world or try all the world cuisine and get into, whatever field. But what gets me up in the morning is really, really the work. So there's still a lot to do, and a lot of innovation, and it's really an exciting field. Medicine, AT, everything. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, everyone. This is Cami here again. It sounds like your experiences working in various ILCs has brought so much to your life, and it's so great to hear about that. We have a question. Our next question is from one of our audience members, Tonique, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right, says, I'm very interested in becoming a mentor. How can I get involved? And if any of the four of you want to answer that, that would be great.
Hi. Oh, do you want to go, Lillibeth? Go right ahead. Oh, she left. All right. It's awesome that you want to be a mentor. And it's a really good question. I know, do you do that organically? Is there a structured program? I think programs like this, like Mentoring Day, is a really good program to get involved with. Find out how you can do that on a more regular basis. If you are a person with a disability, definitely people with disabilities could benefit from that. I think oftentimes they happen organically, and it's like, for me, I think you have to be picky when choosing a mentor. And because it's what do I want out of my life? I'm the only one that can answer that. Or what kind of advice do I need? Do I want somebody to agree with everything I say, or do I want somebody to challenge me? Somebody to give me, some, really hard things to think about. So it's great that you want to be a mentor. I know maybe Lillibeth knows of some programs that you can get involved with. I know that there's like boys clubs, girls clubs, and things like that are pretty incredible. And I apologize, interpreter, for talking fast. So, but I honestly think be respectful of individuals and trying to find, don't always go out and search for it, because I think often that energy you bring off that you want to share does come back. And where people, will find you, and, have integrity, be willing to be honest, give honest opinions, honest advice, help people answer their own questions sometimes, because that can be interesting too. But I don't know if that really helps much, other than if you want to, get involved with some of the more structured things. But I've found most of my mentors happened more organically, where I wasn't looking for them. They either the universe provided it for me, or having an understanding what I needed, knowing what I needed, and finding someone to help fill that role.
mention a program we have here at CRIL, and it's called DANI, Disability Action Network for Youth. And we also have a new component of it for young adults. And I would say that depending upon where your independent living center is, you might want to find if they have similar programs, because as I agree with Lisa, the mentors, the best way for it to happen is organically. And if you were to volunteer for like our youth program and come in and work with the youth, somebody eventually would gravitate to you, and it would be a natural thing, and both of you would benefit from it greatly. And so I would say, look at the independent living centers, see what youth programs they have, and volunteer with them.
Um, oh,
No, no,
yeah,
go
I
ahead.
agree with Lisa and Michael. I think you will be called where you're meant to be. So, and wait, search and wait. While you search, be cognizant of what your interests are. So it's a lot of self-knowledge and knowing what's out there. Here at CALIF, we have groups. We're not necessarily, they're not necessarily youth groups. They're youth members. But like I said, I think it mirrors more the fact that disability is, across all ages. So sometimes you share the same experience as a person 10, 20 years older than you. And it's okay not to call it a youth group. It's a peer group, right? So, and also what's good is to get involved. Remember, we were talking about intersectionality. Get out there and join the other groups, other minority groups, and let them learn about you and learn about them. So, anyway, thank you.
For sure. And like honestly, thank you very much for that answer. And that leads towards another question, which could be anyone is more than free towards being able to like answer this question, but it's pretty much mentors and mentees learn and gain a lot through supporting one another. Can you share with us what you found to be the most important advice or support anyone has given to you? Moreover, what advice would you give today's disabled youth?
Jessica, I'm sorry. I had a call. Can you repeat your question again?
No, no worries. I had mentors and mentees learned and gained a lot through supporting one another. Can you share with us what you found to be the most important advice or support anyone has ever given you? Moreover, what advice would you give to today's disabled youth?
Okay. So this is Lisa. I can attempt. The important advice, I've been given so many really good advice through the years. And without sounding trite or, stick with it and, follow your dreams. Those are all great, really, really great things. But the things, if I can impart on you as you go on your journey, I would say stay curious. Always. Don't get stuck in things. Just stay curious. Don't be afraid to peel the onion back and find out what's in the center there. I think that's what I would share.
All right. What do you want to ask our last question?
Sure. So I have another question from the Q&A. This is from our audience. Jackson asks, how old were you when you started working and how did you find that job? So again, this is open to all four of you, whoever wants to answer.
I can jump in. This is Larry. I was 17 when I got my first paying job. And I went through a program, I forget what it was called. I know it doesn't exist anymore, but it was a program that helped young people with disabilities find work during the summer between school years. And I worked at the high school and was part of the janitorial and groundskeeping staff and that sort of thing. So it was an interesting job, and it really provided me an opportunity to find out about responsibility and, working with others and all of those things that you learn as a young person. The jobs aren't always the most glorious, but those jobs can teach you a lot. And that was my experience for sure.
Hi, this is Lisa. I was 16 and a half, and it was called Professional Nurses Bureau. It was my very first job. And this was a job I would literally go in and go through a Rolodex of nurses trying to get them fit to fill hospital vacancies that were for people who called out sick. It was, and couldn't agree with you more what Larry said about, even the jobs that don't seem, flipping burgers. I really tried. I wanted hard to work at Denny's, and I couldn't get anybody to hire me at Denny's. I'm a chair user, and that would have been interesting, but I wanted to do it still. I love challenging myself, but challenge yourself. And you don't know what you're going to learn, and you will learn. Everything you do in your life will, kind of be adding to that pool of experience, that knowledge and wisdom that you'll get when you're 60 like me. So I think 16 and a half though, that was my very first job. It was fun.
I was 15 and a half at my first job, and it was at a company that no longer exists. It was called CRIL's Furniture in Fremont, and I worked in the warehouse. And all of my classmates thought it was really weird that was my summer job because I was a nerd. And they thought, you're working in a warehouse? To which, and it was a wonderful experience for me, which is why I would say, step outside your comfort zone when you're starting for these jobs that are for short periods of time, because you'll find out more about yourself than you can imagine when you're doing something that is so totally different from what you normally are doing. And for me, it taught me that I could actually live and work in a non-school atmosphere. Because at 15, all you know is school. So it was just really a good opening to the world.
For me, I went to a Catholic school, and my mom challenged me. She wanted to prepare me for work. So she enrolled me, and she said she wanted me to learn typing and stenography. But in order to type and to go to the classes, I had to be carried about maybe 12 steps up. And it's in a co-ed school. So, and I was a teenager. I think I was 14. And you know how awkward we feel at that age, and to be carried every day during the summer and have to struggle with onlookers, curious little children or whatever. It was really hard, but I finished the course. I learned stenography, and when I got to college, people were borrowing my notes because I took the fastest notes. So that helped me.
With that in mind, I really wanted to take the time to thank each and every single one of you for being able to take the time and speaking with us. Honestly, it means a lot. I feel that like we gained a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom. And it is due to that that I have one last final question, which anyone can feel more than free to answer. And that's like, do y'all have any final words of encouragement and or advice towards our disabled youth?
Okay. Mentor means this thing that mentor means you are with another person. You cannot the disability experience has to be shared. So take it, live it with dignity, share it, be proud of it, and know that that's what you have that need to be added on to by another person. So do not ever allow yourself to be alone. I think the mentorship notion means we're social. We have to be social about our experience because it's a very rich and enriching experience. So when you feel down, by the way, I'd like to thank Michael for his description of his own struggle about the 3 categories of disability. That's my first time to hear that. Thank you. Thank you to Lisa and Larry. But anyway, that's all I have to share, that you're not alone. Don't allow yourself to struggle by yourself, and because there are many of us. You just have to find us, find each other. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Larry. I just a couple of thoughts real quick. I would just say, don't give up. I know as someone who grew up with a disability, and that it's not always easy, and it's challenging, and so but just don't give up, and seek out people who can serve as role models and mentors and answer questions and provide you with support, and also that you're not alone. There between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 Americans has a disability. I guess it's 1 in 5. That's a huge number, and so you're not, even though you might not know people, you're not alone. There are many of us out there, and so seek people out. And lastly, just again, thanks to my fellow panelists for the conversation today.
And my final words would say, first thing is believe in yourself. And then secondly, trust yourself. Most likely you are a good person. You may make mistakes, but it's not going to really harm a lot of people. An honest mistake is an honest mistake. So trust yourself and then do something. Don't sit in the background. Go out, stick out your head and do something. One of my favorite images is a turtle that sticks its head out of its shell to get the sun, and where at the same time a turtle deals with the dirt in its life as it reaches for the sun. And I would say, take the same thing for yourself. Deal with the dirt in your life, but reach for the sun.
Hi, this is Lisa. I'll one list parting thoughts. Piggybacking on what Michael just said, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to follow your dreams. One of my most favorite sayings that I tell my employees when things look too big, right? It's too big of a task. I ask them, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Literally, you will eventually get it all. Life is don't be, nothing to fear but fear itself. I'm sure we've all heard that, but don't, let fear drive you. I always say, just do it, go out there. And you want to try being flipping burgers at McDonald's or In-N-Out Burger, go do it. I saw there was a comment in the things about, this person has tried for 10 years to find a job. Well, ask yourself, what types of jobs are you looking for? What is your passion? What do you get excited about when you talk? Is it art? Is it, whatever? You've got to find the job that you're not going to have trouble talking about in an interview, because it's something you're passionate about. Find that job. And that's what you go after. People are going to be attracted to you, your personality. They're going to, the initial shock, if you have a visible disability, is going to wear off. If you have, if you just, kind of talk your way through it, people will forget that. I relied on that. And, I know the first thing they're going to see is my chair. They're not going to pay any attention, and they're going to be curious and worried of whether or not I could do something. And believe me, I'm not trying to sugarcoat this, you will find barrier after barrier after barrier. I was told I didn't get a job because they were concerned that I wouldn't be able to deliver sandwiches in a boardroom. I could tell you tons of stories of rejection, but don't get stuck on that. Just say next. I think Ariana said it best. Thank you, next. Right. So, and kind of have that thought and just follow your dreams. Just do it. Just go out there. Don't be afraid to fail. What is the worst? You can ask yourself, what is the absolute worst that can happen in this situation? Either they're going to say no, or you're going to think you look like an idiot. But who cares? Tomorrow you're going to sleep on it. Tomorrow's a new day. All starts again. So these are just things. So don't worry about it and have fun.
For sure. And with that in mind, I really wanted to thank all the panelists for being able to be here today. I am so deeply touched, motivated, and empowered by each of your stories. I truly want to thank each of you for taking the time once again to be with us here today. With that in mind, I'll pass it to Cameron because the time has arrived to announce our 3 winners.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being here. I'm going to be drawing 3 winners at random. This is for a $500 gift card. And once again, thank you to everybody for attending. We really appreciate you being a part of our events and supporting CFILC and Yo. With that being said, our first winner is Sharon Nguyen. Sharon Nguyen is our first winner. And just to let you guys know, we will be emailing you, CFILC staff, with more instructions on how to receive your prize. But congratulations to Sharon, you are our first winner. Our second winner is Jonathan Sparks. Jonathan Sparks. Congratulations, Jonathan, you are our second winner of the $500 gift card. And last but certainly not least, Samantha Redillo, and I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. Samantha Redillo, you are our third winner of the $500 gift card. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to Jessica.
Thank you. Now, in conclusion, I truly wanted to take the time to thank Michael Galvan, Lisa Hayes, Lillibeth, Navarro, and Larry Wenger for taking the time to be here with us today. Your stories transcend and are so motivating and impactful. I also wanted to take the time to take a minute for those who worked on screens and behind the scenes. We could not have run this event without all the staff members who contributed on making this event a success. Moreover, to our Yo volunteers, which included Cami and the Independent Living Centers, for posting this event on your social medias, as well as helping spread the word. I lastly wanted to give a shout out to Anthem for partnering with us in this event. Additionally, I wanted to thank our ASL interpreters and captioners for providing the access needs we needed. Moreover, this event became a success because you are here to share this story with us. Therefore, thank you. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I hope you enjoyed today's Q&A session with all these amazing panelists. With that in mind, this is the end of our event, and I hope you have a beautiful